Today we're honored to welcome Ari Rastegar to the show today. I'm very excited to have him on. He is very prominent in the health and wellness space. He talks about so many different things in terms of optimizing your routines, right? That's what it's all about because if you want to master your health, it really comes down to the routines, the fundamentals, and how we optimize these things throughout the day, right? Because it's not just what we do sometimes, but what we do all the time that is going to really create an overall wellness. And he talks about so many different things within this, but I'm gonna have him on today and have a lot of value, get some practical takeaways. So how you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. Living the dream.
Let's go. I'm very curious to hear your story and how you got into the wellness space and how you're being of service today.
Sure. I got into it by feeling like shit. I run a real estate investment business, and I build apartment buildings, industrial facilities, data centers, homes, for a living, but I wasn't taking care of myself the way I would take care of my balance sheet, managing finances and managing the numbers and managing people's money. About 10 years ago, one of my clients, who's one of the, most brilliant, beautiful people on earth. His name is Dr. Jacob Rosenstein. He's a spinal neurosurgeon in Dallas, Texas. He wrote a book called Defy Aging, and I recommend it to anybody that's on a health journey. I wrote the introduction to it, but he's a spinal neurosurgeon that developed an age management program. Because he and himself in his 50s found himself, at a barbecue, and his kids saying, "You look fat and look like shit, dad," and what are you going to do? And taking that big brain of his, he sat down and created his own multivitamin that he patented and started looking at blood work and really helping people, optimize their lives. And after he decided to become a client of mine in my investment business, he, was kind of like, do you feel okay? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, in my early 30s, I'm pretty thin and, whatever. And he's like, are you sure you feel okay? Let me take a look at your blood. And so I said, okay. And I didn't feel good, honestly. I was tired. I was working like crazy. And, I was on my third business at the time. I was already an attorney. I was not sleeping for days at a time, founder mode kind of thing. And he tested my blood, and my testosterone was shit. My cholesterol was high. My inflammation was high. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And then, he helped me, start to think through that from a nutraceutical standpoint, from a food sensitivity standpoint. He put me on this DEXA scan, which I'm sure, you can go do at, one of there's clinics and stuff. You can pay a little bit to look at your bone density and body fat percentage at a real granular level. And I realized that my health, it was a disaster. And if you don't have your health, you don't have shit. So I took the mind that is focused to get me through school and to build big businesses, to managing my blood work and managing my nutrition and managing my health the way that I manage my finances. And that shift of saying, I am the investment, completely changed my life. And that was about 10 years ago, that I got after it, in a very, very, very serious way. And so much of the gadgets and biohacking stuff had become really my hobby, in a lot of ways. And but the fundamental truths, as you mentioned, the basics that everybody can do, no matter what your budget is, if you're blessed enough to be listening to this on a digital device, you have the funds, you have the ability to do the simple things and get yourself in order. Because at the end of the day, the basic, boring stuff is going to get you 80% of the benefits. And that's what we're after.
Thank you for sharing, man. I love it. You are the number one investment, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah, I'm the only. Well, in my book, which is called "The Gift of Failure." I have a section called "The Most Important Investment." I was like, well, if I don't have me, like I'm here to serve. I'm here to give. I got to fill my cup up so I have something, to do for all my clients and my people. And my life is about contribution. I'm not Mother Teresa, but my work is my worship. And so if I don't have anything to give and I'm empty, I can't be a great dad to my kids. I can't be a great CEO. I can't, I'm worthless. And so I do this to invest so I can then my life can be the dividends that I pay out.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people don't understand that. Like you have to invest in yourself, right? And you have to grow so you can give more, right? To be of service in all ways that you can.
Yeah, I agree with you very much. Absolutely. So these types of conversations I think are very important, But and so much of it is so much more simple than I think people that are selling you stuff try to, try to make it. You look at the way that I eat. And again, I like pizza. I like French fries. I am not a robot. You know what I mean? Like I like that, all that, that stuff too. But I equate it with like fun and nutrition is the way my brain set it up. So when my kids are eating pizza, it's Friday night, we're doing whatever, that's fun. And I'm enjoying myself, but during the week and I'm in business mode, I'm in work mode, I eat militant, and I'll do, organic wild salmon, vegetables. So I'll go to Costco and just get a big thing of, vegetables, already frozen, heat them up, put them in a little, meal prep, boil a bunch of organic sweet potatoes and make mashed sweet potatoes. And I'll eat, grilled chicken, organic grilled chicken, salmon, veggies, sweet potatoes, and avocado for days. And again, like you look at the cost of a meal, and you're like, oh, it's so expensive to eat healthy. Dude, I went to Chick-fil-A with my youngest daughter, recently. It was like $13. And I can make like 7 meals of like perfect. And I know some people, they have different ways of eating, maybe for religious purposes or health or vegan or, there's ways they can optimize it. Me, myself, I was vegan, vegetarian for many, many years. Now I was pescatarian for many years. Red meat spikes my cholesterol a little bit. I love it. So you've got to find your way of looking at stuff. But at the end of the day, eating a massive amount of vegetables, eating protein however you get it, whether that's in meats or plant protein, and then also having some fats, however you do that, healthy fats like that are like in avocados, is pretty staple for the human ecosystem. And so if I can get a good amount of salmon, a couple handfuls of either salad or vegetables, and like I said, from Costco gets a bag this big of chicken thigh that's like $12, and that's like 16 meals of protein on the chicken side, and I just put it in the thing. And 80% of the time, I just eat like that. I drink a plant-based protein shake and some stuff in the morning. But if you do that alone, like it is physically impossible, barring some sort of health issue, and you should see your doctor. I know people have, other medical issues, and I'm very sensitive to that. But if you are blessed enough to be in relatively good health overall, if you eat like that, you're going to feel better. I mean, and taking a multivitamin of sort, I like the one by this company called Life Extensions or this company called Pure Encapsulations. You can buy it on Amazon, for 2 months supply of a multivitamin that you take two a day is like $12. So, if you reallocate your mind to say, look, it's simple, maybe not easy, overcoming your cravings, your urges, and these addictions that we have to sugar and to carbs and all this other stuff. But, with these simple shifts and a little bit of forethought, just like you take some time, you got to think before you make your investments, you got to plan, out your week a little bit, you can make some very meaningful, lasting change. And that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to personalize your wellness journey for sure, as you mentioned.
Yeah, but there's staples to it. There is certain staple things that if you're a human being, that certain, like high quality water. High quality water is a great example. If you're a human, you have to drink a certain amount of high quality water. You need a certain amount of electrolytes that are in that water because that's how the battery of the body works. If you get a distiller on Amazon, okay, for like $100, you can distill your own water, like just put tap water in it because tap water is disgusting, at the end of the day. And in one of the ways I learned that was if you put your water in this distiller, distilled water boils the water, it turns to steam, and then it cools it and it drips out. So basically, distilled water has nothing in it. It's completely empty. And if you smell what's left over after it boils, you'll throw up. But if you have that distilled water, you can just take a little bit of Celtic salt and put it inside of distilled water, shake it, drink it, and you have excellent high quality water. Electrolytes, the Celtic salt for a bag this big on Amazon's $8. So you can have great water. Don't waste your money on bottled water. Don't waste your water, money on all these gimmicks. Like you can do these things if you put the work and put the effort in. and make a very, 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 very big impact without paying some fancy trainer or, I don't know, some gym membership or buying fancy Lululemon clothes. Like it is a little boring, but the best investments in the world are boring, but they make a ton of money and they might not be sexy. This thing that I'm telling you might not sound so sexy and glamorous in a sales pitch, but it fucking works.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned that because, like you said, there are fundamentals that are required for wellness, but then you kind of personalize it, kind of optimize it based off your goals, your state of mind, all these things that come
That's
together.
right. Totally. And I
And you
think that
also
comes
mentioned,
second. And I think that's super, and that's important. That's super important, Anthony. And I think, but like you said, there's fundamentals and then there's optimizations, right? It's like when you go to college, basically everyone has to take some prerequisites, and then they go into their major, and then they specialize, right? And so I look at it kind of like that, where there's some prerequisites where we need to, have some high quality sleep. We need to have high quality hydration. We need to move our bodies. It can be argued of which way you move your body. You're doing this, so you're doing dancing or you're doing high intensity workout, but you got to move your body. You got to get that heart rate up a little bit. And then you can specialize it to your things, but moving your body, hydrating your body, putting high quality nutrition, in the tank, and then finding what suits your goals, your lifestyles, your things as well. But to me, that's secondary.
yeah, I love that because, as you mentioned, all these things they come together and they stack, right? It's a process in of itself, and you focus on that progress every single day, those small wins, and before you know it, you reach your goals. You just got to keep making that forward progress, man.
You nailed it. And it's so much like the analogy. And I keep going back to the investment business because I do believe that this is an investment. I really, and that's how my mind works. I make people money for a living. That's my goal. That's my life. I build beautiful houses that become homes and huge office buildings and skyscrapers. And, I watch how it can change communities. And that's my passion in life and making our investors a lot of money. Well, this is the same thing. When you compound interest, over time, if you invest a little bit of money in your 401k or your IRA or in an index fund or a little bit, it's like, oh, that's just a little bit. But if you look at that little bit that you stacked in that account over 20 years at 7% return, which doesn't seem like much, that's a huge amount of money. And it's the same way with your health. You do those little wins, but those little wins become big fucking wins when you do them consistently over time.
For sure. And you mentioned the difference between being simple and complex, right? It's like we want to overcomplicate everything and we don't understand why we get nothing done, right? The reality is a lot of these things are simple concepts and we just do all the fancy things first as opposed to mastering the fundamentals, right? But it's really, health is really simple. We just got to put those things into action at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're totally right. And fundamentals win championships, right? You look at sports, and I'm in Texas, so you look at the San Antonio Spurs, who anybody that watches basketball during the years when the Spurs were killing everybody, maybe the most boring team in history, but they have like 7 rings. They know their game. Maybe not wasn't exciting as some of the other stuff, but they win. And that's what this is really about because if you look at a door, right, you look at a door, the way it opens, big, big, big door, it has these three little hinges, right? And what I've always, joked is that small hinges swing big doors. Those little things that don't seem whatever, but the little things are the big things, and relationships and exercise and all these different things. Those little things done consistently, stacking one another over time, make exponential, insane leaps because life doesn't happen in days, life happens in decades.
Yeah, small steps, great distances. I like
You
that
go, and you
for
got to
sure.
take that step, and you got to just keep going through those fundamentals. I think where it is, the rest, the fancy stuff comes in. Look, I like hyperbaric chambers. Also, I've been fortunate in my life from delivering pizzas and flipping burgers, to running a pretty big business. Where yes, getting in hyperbaric chambers, helps your brain, helps your body, does all that stuff. But that's extra. That's a luxury that I've earned in my life as a 43-year-old, CEO, as a father of three. I've just started to do some of those things in the past years. but you can get great knowledge that you have to invest in your own mental state too, because if you're not listening to great things that are putting in good, positive messaging, intellectual messaging, strategic messaging as well, you might be sabotaging your own health, your physical health, because your mental health is not getting you to that place. So, finding a way to feed your mind, feed your soul, feed your body, whatever that means, because this whole body, this whole life experiment experience is one big ecosystem. You can't just do bicep curls on one arm. I mean, you could, but you'd be an idiot. Like you have to work the whole body, and that means what you eat, what you listen to, what you see, how you move your legs, your arms, um, and I think paying attention to those things in a little amount of time, 5 to 10 minutes a day in a few different categories, to maybe getting to 20, 30 minutes a day of small daily movements, maybe in your mobility routine, eating just simple, healthy, one or two of your meals being really, really healthy, doing some good movement, meditating. Over time, as we said, that'll become resounding exponential changes. You don't need to go to the gym for 3.5 hours. You don't need to go to the Himalayas to learn how to meditate. You don't need to buy $20 bottled water. Like that's all bullshit. It's just someone selling you something, and that's okay. But this is the truth.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. Like, you have to feed your mind, as you mentioned, right? Because it's not just about the body. Everything is connected, like mind, body, spirit. All these things matter, right? And you got to be careful what you're watching, what you're listening to.
You do.
Everything comes into play, man, for sure.
Yeah,
Because,
and also, I think what I've learned in my life. Sorry, it kind of broke up for a second. Anthony, you there?
yeah,
Sorry, I lost. You can clip that part out. I didn't hear what you said. It got too staticky.
oh, no worries. Yeah, I was just saying, like, be careful what you watch, man, what you listen to. All these things, they come together, right? And these thoughts and emotions that we're feeling, they're really going to lead to our actions at some point, right? So we got to take control of the inner landscape, and that's how we get those external results, man. So,
Yeah, I think it's all an inner game. It's all an inner game. Like we don't have actual lions, and some people do, but in America, we don't necessarily have lions chasing us to where these stress hormones and cortisol spiking. We have someone sending you a bad comment on Instagram, or someone text messaging you that you're a dick, or at least I do. Then you get upset, and so managing how your resilience actually operates is really a psychological game, and you got to train your psychology like you train your body. Meditation's a huge part of my life, huge, 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 huge part of my life. I'm very fortunate to have done several different styles, from transcendental meditation that I learned from Ray Dalio, or learned about from Ray Dalio. He's one of the greatest investors in history. And then a lot of work I've done with Dr. Joe Dispenza in recent years, which has really explained to me the science of how meditation works, and what happens with heart rate variability, and what happens to your brain waves, how you can literally be making better decisions when you're in an elevated state, feeling better and putting yourself in that state. You make better decisions, more empathetic decisions, more loving decisions, which compound. But at the end of the day, what you focus on grows. Simple. If you focus on it, if you think about it a lot, that thing is going to get more. If you focus on your problems, more problems are going to come. What's wrong is always available. So is what's right. And training yourself, training that focus muscle to focus on the thing you're grateful for, bringing your focus back to the blessings that are in your life, and fighting that muscle to get back and stay in that place. You're going to fall out and negative stuff's going to happen. That's great. Problems are the gifts that we grow from. You have problems, you grow from them, you come back to gratitude, and that ebb and flow, like the ocean, like the sun, like the moon, that cycle is how we operate through this experience that we call life. But at the end of the day, if you can focus more and the majority of your time on those positive things, on those healthy things, on those contributing things, on those elevated things, those things are going to grow even more and more. Same with negative. You pick. Same thing with investing, little interest stacks. Little positive, that podcast, that little one thing you watched, that one video you didn't watch that you knew was garbage, all tends to create the life. Maybe not today, but definitely over time, inevitably, it'll stack into the life you are building, whether you do it by default or whether you do it on purpose. I highly recommend you take some purpose and put some good intention into the things that you want to build.
100%, man. Yeah, what you focus on tends to expand, right? We can't just expect these things to happen. You have to train it, right? And all these things that you just mentioned, it's so important because once we start to get that positive momentum on a day to day basis based off these small actions, that's where we're going to see inspiration, right? Because these wins, I find it kind of acts as a fuel as well. It's like this inspiration. Now, oh, I see what's possible. So let's go. Right?
Yes.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, you're right. And that's right. And you when you start to get those wins, like people talk a lot about a big dialogue these days is about self-confidence and self-esteem and how people feel. And my perspective on that is people that are self-confident have a track record of being confident. Like you said, they have wins, they put in the work and they've won. So when they get to a moment where they or should they have confidence or not confidence, they don't have to rely on some whether or not I feel good. They have a track record. They've been doing good. They overcame an obstacle, and so they can trust themselves and have actual self esteem because they have had esteemed moments of success in the past from pushing through, doing that last rep, showing up that extra hour at work, taking that overtime shift, or whatever it is in your life that you got to push through to prove to yourself that you respect yourself and you respect this gift of life. You respect this heart that beats 100,000 times a day inside of your body, and you didn't do shit. It was a gift. It was given to you to be here. When you respect that and you honor that and you show up, it tends to do more for you.
Absolutely, man, for sure. So you talk a lot about wellness routines, right? So
Yeah.
we mentioned this a little bit in terms of like the fundamentals and things like that. Say someone's just getting started. Like, how do we actually start this process and take action from there?
Well, I think a lot of it so much has to do um, routines. There's a great book called Atomic Habits. Okay, I'm a big reader. I was an English major. I'm an attorney, as I said, so I read. I mean, my kids make fun of me that I just read pamphlets in front of me. I mean, reading is what I do. In Atomic Habits, something beautiful book, legendary. Read it, buy it, turn this off and go buy that book if it's a choice. And one of the things that the author talks about that I love so much is when you want to create a new habit, first of all, it takes time. Repetition takes time to build the habit. But one of the easiest ways is to, if you're just getting started, attach the new thing you want to do to something you already do. I'll give you an example. Every day, hopefully, everybody brushes their teeth twice a day. Okay. And if you're wanting to start, learning how to do push ups, every time you brush your teeth, do 5 push ups because you're already going to brush your teeth. So your autonomic, your attitude, your automatic behavior, and we all have automatic behaviors, whether we care to admit it or not. Find something you do no matter what in a place you do and latch on that other thing to it to lower your resistance. So every time you brush your teeth, do 5 push ups. Every time you brush your teeth, do 5 push ups, 5 push ups, and start giving yourself some momentum around things that you're already doing. If you sit in a chair, all day long and you're at work, bring a couple dumbbells with you. And right when you sit down to work in your chair, do a couple curls. I'm just using dumb examples. But, when I brush my teeth, I always brush my teeth with my left hand so I can get some different neural synapses going. I can work on my non dominant hand and I do it in a squat. So for years, I didn't work out my legs enough and I sat a lot at a desk. My glutes were underactivated and I knew that I really needed to strengthen my squat, strengthen my pelvic floor, strengthen this area. Very important for us as we get older. Very important for men in a lot of different ways, women too. Um, so I get in a squat and I brush my teeth with my left hand every morning and every night. And so I might only be in it for 45 seconds, maybe a minute of electronic toothbrush, but it forces me to get into a squat. And nothing really happened over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But 3 months later, boy, it was almost impossible for me to get into a deep squat. My heels came off the ground. I was tip toppy. I was super uncomfortable. My neck was hurting. I dropped down in the squat like this now. And it was just something automatic I just put in that had resounding effects in my life. That's just one example and one way to kind of just get you on your journey to get one thing started in something that's important to you. Find it to something you do already. If you drink your coffee every single day, great. Then maybe make protein shakes the night before. When you drink your coffee, then drink a protein shake. Just something where you're already doing. If you smoke a cigarette, then do 10 push-ups every time you smoke a cigarette. Like it doesn't have to be like the best habit you have, but if it's a habit, connect something to it. If you know you're going to go smoke a cigarette 3 times a day, And, now smoking, people smoke more, believe it or not, than they ever have in history. And I know that sounds insane, but it's absolutely true. Marlboro recorded the highest profits they've had in the history of the company this past quarter. So if you're smoking, every time you smoke, do 20 push-ups. So it doesn't matter what it is, but just if you have a habit to it, add a good habit next to the thing you're already doing. And that's a great strategy, explains, and it's worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Like these things we're already doing, just make the tweaks to like add
Yeah.
on top of it, right? It's like these small things,
Add
like these little
tweaks.
things make a big difference, man.
Dude, if you every day with your brushing your teeth, we all brush our teeth, hopefully. So if you brush your teeth twice a day and you decide today on this podcast you're listening, bless yourself, gift yourself, and say, you know what? I'm going to listen to those two dudes and I'm going to do 10 squats every time I brush my teeth. Just air squats, just squat down 10 squats, or I'm going to do 10 push-ups. Message Anthony in 2 months, and you could send your before and after, or send your comment, or send your testimonial, because you're going to have one if you do it, and it's going to be incredible, and it's going to bleed to everything else you do in your life, and it's going to have positive effects that you can't even imagine, because most importantly it'll give you something that I believe is one of the most valuable commodities in the universe. And no, it's not gold, it's momentum.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like a lot of people they habit stack in reverse, man. Like they don't understand why they're not where they want to be. Like they had these negative habits and they just kind of stack them on top of each other, right? As opposed to having these positive routines that build on top of each other and create this positive momentum towards your goals. Like you have to structure it in an intelligent manner to actually reach your goals, right? Like what do you
You're
want?
right.
Like fundamental questions as well.
What's also inertia, right? Like, so inertia is when something's in motion and like the boulder is going down the mountain, right? Once it picks up speed, it's very hard to just stop it. And in this day and age, I'm on this list too. Nobody's immune from it, certainly not me. Those negative habits of comfort and pleasure and distraction and procrastination and the lazy shit that I admittedly do, that I think a lot of us do, they stack on each other. And so you have positive movement in the negative way. So starting up with the one big thing, eventually, if you keep doing the one good thing, like brushing your teeth with the push-ups, then all of a sudden you're like, fuck it, I'll do some squats. Like, you know what? I'm gonna go make a vegetable soup. You know what? I'm gonna go take my bite. And so once you build up the inertia in the positive way and overcome pushing that boulder up the wall, just like it becomes easy to do all the other negative shit, it's gonna become a lot easier to do all the positive stuff. You just got to do the heavy lifting on the front end.
Yeah, for sure, man. So in terms of wellness, like how do you recommend we start within that, right? Because so many different things we can talk about, but like, what
Sure.
are the routines, like fundamentals that people should start to engage in on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think there's a few very simple things that are very low friction. I think if you're not taking a multivitamin, a probiotic, as an example, that is such an easy thing to do, that and very cost effective, that can absolutely revolutionize your life. Colon cancer is the highest it has ever been, and your colon, your gut is your second brain. There is more neural synapses in your gut than there is in your brain. It's also a larger mass, but this gut instinct and all this stuff we hear about your intestines and how important it is. You can go on Amazon, go to get a very high quality multivitamin, read the reviews, find something that's 4.9 stars and up with 20,000 reviews. I don't know, find one. Great multivitamin, highly reviewed, and also a probiotic, which is the good bacteria for your gut, and what's called a prebiotic, which is basically fiber that helps the good bacteria grow in your gut. It's basically could be as little as 4 pills in a day. My oldest daughter, doesn't like to take pills. So I open up the capsules and I mix it in like a little juice so she can drink them. So if you don't like to swallow pills, I know people say that. But if you could make the investment for yourself of for a monthly expense, I would say $20, $25 of those 4 supplements on a daily basis, it'll affect every single thing in your entire body in a positive way. Everything. And that's just one way you can start today. That's instantaneous, it's cost effective. You have very little excuses to make. It takes under 4 seconds to swallow 4 pills, maybe once a half a second if you can do them quickly. And you're having these massive effects day one. And, I take about 200 supplements a day, quite frankly, which I know is a little obsessive. I'm obsessive, admittedly. But I didn't start that way. I started taking 10 or 15, and over 10 years, I added on. And et cetera. But taking a probiotic, prebiotic, and multivitamin day one, massive change, huge leverage, very inexpensive.
Yeah, for sure. Filling in those nutrient gaps is really important, right? Because of course, eating real food is the foundation, the basis, but it's kind of hard to get everything, even just
You
like the
can't,
modern world, like the soil
Anthony, you
depletion and all
can't.
that.
You basically can't. I mean, I love you. You can't. And in our soils, in America, certainly, and most parts of the world, like you said, could you maybe the amount of money, time, and energy you'd have to spend to go to local farms and all that kind of stuff, the amount of energy that it would take to do it, and the cost and the time of just taking four supplements and the cost of it, risk to ratio, time benefit analysis, take the four pills. And yes, eat whole foods, 100 billion%, take the damn four pills. Even if you're eating McDonald's, take the four fucking pills.
Right. So, in terms of high performance, like, so now let's say we got the fundamentals down, we're doing things right. Now we want to optimize. Maybe we want to have more energy for high performance and business and all these things. Like, what do you recommend in terms of that?
Yeah. So high performance, peak performance. There's a lot of different ways to go about doing, but I'll say one thing that's not talked about enough, in my opinion. Talk about a little bit in my book. I was very fortunate enough to learn about it earlier in my life, but it's postural alignment. Posture and alignment, because your body, if you think of it like a race car, look at when the F1 racers, they make a couple laps, they pull over, they're a lot constantly, twerking tweaking the suspension, and realigning the wheels and tires and working on the machinery and the positioning of the machinery. The body's the same way. So through our lifestyle, more sedentary lifestyle, sitting lifestyle, our pelvis gets inverted, our shoulders curl over from being on devices, and just going like this is not posture. But there's ways, like there's a method called the Egoscue method, Egoscue, kind of a weird word. It was developed by a man named Pete Egoscue. I learned about it from a guy named Brian Bradley, who's an absolute genius. Y'all should look him up. Brian Bradley, he runs a company called Posture X. And basically, you can find a teacher, or you can Google this on YouTube. You can buy the book. There's so many resources. But basically, it's a way that you train the muscles that are underutilized and the ones that are overutilized to do their job. So your shoulders, your neck, your body, your pelvis start to hold a more aligned, balanced system. So when you do bench press, you're not doing bench press like this, as an example. Or, one hip is elevated too high. So when you do a squat, you're going to blow out your knee, or you try to go for a run and you hurt your ankle. This puts the physical body in place, which also puts the organs in the right place, and allows more cerebral spinal fluid to the brain, and gets the physical ecosystem of the body more balanced, so everything else can be optimized.
Yeah, those muscle imbalances, man, they make a huge difference. Like your energy, everything
Huge
would be so
difference.
much more optimized if you get these things in order. And
Look up
it's a fundamental thing as
Egoscue.
well.
Look up Egoscue. Like I said, I talk about it in my book a little bit. There's many people out there. It depends on where you are. Where you are, and most major cities have them. But like I said, there's so many free resources too. With this age of YouTube, ignorance is a decision. If you're, there is so much knowledge out there. You have to go out of your way not to find it. But I recommend looking that up, looking up the vitamins, and those are a couple immediate things that some of them very simple. The posture stuff takes a little more time, 10, 15 minutes a day. But these are things that are super high leverage. You get these things right, it's going to make astronomical changes in your body.
For sure, man. You also talk about biohacking a lot, right? So can you describe what that is and maybe how we can utilize it in our own lives?
Yeah, totally. So biohacking is just, kind of it's a funky little word that basically is talking about how we can use technology to improve our life. Just think of it like that. One thing, I'll give you an simple example. Like you can, on my bed, I use what's this company called a Chili Pad, or Chili Me, Sleep Me, which is basically this thing where, when we all know when we sleep in our bed and it gets kind of hot, and you go to the other side of the pillow, and the other side of the pillow is kind of cool. Well, we live in an air conditioned world where the air is air conditioned, but our beds have a lot of different substances they're made of, a lot of plastic. So the bed gets really hot. So a lot of times we all know what it's like. It's 70 degrees on the air conditioner, but you're hot as hell in your bed. And your body temperature on how you sleep is very important. So this technology, you can look it up, Chili Pad, Sleep Me. There's a bunch of ones, the 8 bed, where basically it has this pad that goes on your mattress where it has an AI that controls the temperature of the mattress. So as you get warmer, the bed will cool down or heat up so that the bed remains cool enough for you to have very optimal sleep. So that's an example of using a piece of technology to make sure that you're increasing the efficiency of you sleep, and it tracks your heart rate variability. It tracks how much REM sleep you got, and then it uses the AI, or you can do it manually to where you're getting really, really deep positive sleep by using a machine, by using a system or a piece of technology to hack your biology to improve it.
Yeah. For sure. I like your definition of that because some people they just say like it's like eating organic and all these simple things that
No.
it's
Well,
that's not
I
biohacking,
mean,
right?
maybe I don't. I mean, look, the opinions are like, you know what, right? I don't know the true Webster dictionary definition, but to me, bio and hacking feels like technology and computers. Bio, I think, is short for biology. That's Ari's definition. Maybe it's not, but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a difference between using technology and just living, right? So I think both are great.
Yeah,
And it's like, we got the fundamentals, then you can use these great technologies to kind of optimize, right? And track things and
yeah.
whatnot. So yeah,
But you
it's
got to
all
drink
positive.
water, you got to eat good food, you got to move your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you got to breathe clean air. Getting a great air filter is also very important. I use one called Levoit. I think it's about $100 or so, and you'd be shocked at how awful the air in our house is. And do yourself a favor, check your air filters for your AC and your heater, and go buy the expensive one, get the size, buy the hypoallergenic one. There may be the cheap ones are like $3. The expensive ones are like $25. But air, if you don't breathe for 3 minutes, you die. If you don't drink water for 3 days, you die. Food, you can go for a month. But so air and water in the hierarchy are important. So get a very high quality air filter, for your house. I think is super, super, super important, or get a portable one for the rooms that you're in, that you sleep in, to really clean the air out. The air that you're breathing, I think, has a massive effect on your overall health. Another thing that I like is shower head filter. You can get one again on Amazon. It's called, the one I use is called the Jolie. It's like Jollie, that just screws straight onto your shower head. You don't need a plumber or anything like that. And it filters the tap water so that you're not bathing in sewer. You're brushing your hair, your skin. It's the quickest way to get a beauty glow up is to, put a shower head filter on, and your skin is your biggest organ, and so by putting the shower head filter, getting an air filter, drinking some high quality water, these are a few little tweaks. And I think the grand total, if you put aside the chili pad, which is expensive, we spent a few $100 and had massive revolutionary changes. And if anyone's just starting, that's enough. Don't overcomplicate it. If you went and did those few things we just said, check back in 6 months and you'll be in a great position.
Right. I like how you mentioned the shower filter because a lot of us we filter our water, but we don't really think about the shower. But that's something that we absorb a lot of things through. So
Oh
it's
my
really
God,
important you
dude.
mention that
It's
as well.
that the and I'm not like a conspiracy theorist of the water is trying to, I don't know, like people say stuff. I don't have enough information to say, but I can say the water I've tested, it's disgusting compared to what you can do to spend $100, to make it better, right? It's, like the cost benefit analysis, put a damn shower filter on, filter your water a little bit. Do yourself a favor, I think we're lucky to have running water. A billion people don't have running water and or toilets. So thank God, we're in America and we have these things. So I don't want to act too pretentious, but if you're on the call and you have an extra $100 and you can afford that luxury, then you should do it.
Yeah, no doubt. So you mentioned HPOT. Can you want to talk about it a little bit and see the benefits that people can get from that?
Yeah, HBOT, or hyperbaric oxygen therapy, has been one of the great revelations of my life. It is absolutely a luxury. Um, no question. You can look up the book, the Oxygen Revolution, if you want to learn more. Incredible book. You can look up I think his name is Dr. Amen. I forgot his first name, Dr. Amen. He's a bald, little short guy,
Daniel
looks like a
Heyman.
bean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that what his name is?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And he has Amen clinics as well if you want to go learn a little bit more about hyperbarics. But basically, you're getting in a little tank. They have hard chambers and soft chambers. All the science I've learned, the soft chambers are a waste of money. My opinion. I'm not a doctor. But the hard chambered ones that get the pressure, the air pressure, the oxygen pressure inside of it to over 2 atmospheres. That basically means that you're underwater, call it 20 feet or 30 feet. And it's based upon how deep you go underwater, meaning the pressure that's on your ears or your body. And they pump 100% pharmaceutical grade oxygen into the tank. And when you're at that much pressure, the pressure that you're in inside this little tube that looks like a submarine, the pressure forces more oxygen into your body, into your plasma, into your brain, and that extra oxygen has resounding healing effects for building new capillaries, for anti-inflammatory issues, from more ATP production. I mean, a cascade of health benefits. The downside is it's very expensive to do it right. Each session is probably $250 for one session, and you need to do a minimum of 40 sessions in very close proximity, one a day, maybe two a day, 5 days a week for however long you can get to 40. The optimal benefits is at 80 sessions to get permanent, long lasting. So doing one or two is a complete waste of money in terms of permanent effects to the body. I've read dozens of books about this. I've done 1,000 sessions myself, maybe 2,000 sessions myself throughout my life. I did 200 sessions last year. At a clinic in Dallas, Texas. Shout out to my boy Eric Cortez, who's the hyperbaric guru. He himself has done like 30,000 sessions. And by the way, he's in his 40s and he looks like he's 22. It's unbelievable. And he's the coolest motherfucker ever. And so if you're in Dallas, you can go see Eric in Snyder Plaza, in Dallas. But yeah, I mean, I think it's called Texas Hyperbarics. But yes, so you have to do a profound amount of them. It takes a lot of time. You're in it from 60 to 90 minutes at a time. You can't bring your phone or anything in there because of the oxygen concentration. But if you do the 40, 80 sessions, I've done these SPECT brain scans before and after to see like how much more blood flows in the brain, tested my own blood work through it, and the benefits are absolutely extraordinary, like beyond belief. If you go down the rabbit hole, but like I said, it is a luxury. It is very expensive, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to have that gift and have the finances to do it. But that's definitely the peak level of biohacking, I believe. And if you're able to do it, anybody in any situation will have insane insane benefits. They usually use it for severely burned victims or people that could have their limbs amputated, that have horrific medical conditions, and this heals them in profound ways. Imagine what it does if you're relatively healthy to begin with.
Definitely. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. So before that, you were mentioning like, all the benefits of, you know, optimizing your air, your water, your light, because it's a big part of it. It's not just what you do, but it's how you do it, right? Because we think about these
It's
things, but
true.
how do we do it in the right way, right? So it's important to think about as well.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right, and the attitude that we have towards it also. Our attitude and means so much. And again, some of this stuff might sound corny or obvious, but you know, this wisdom has been around for a long time, but your mental health really matters. Like, how you do them, the order you do them, the sequencing that you do them matters. And like I said, there's so much information out there, but people that are really just starting on this journey or looking for certain stuff, just find those little gaps. Don't try to solve the whole damn thing. And what, like, start taking the vitamins if you're not, or you're taking vitamins, start taking a probiotic. If you haven't, want to work on some mobility stuff, go learn the Tibetan five rites. So if you look up, the Tibetan monks for 2,000 years have been doing these five exercises for longevity, for life, for mobility. It has a sequence to it, and a certain amount of reps to do. You can find how to do it on YouTube very easily. You like do this little spinning thing, and you do a little simple back bend. There's simple ways for people to do it, but find something little and just get good at it. Add it to a habit. Do it over and over and over and over again, because if you try to overcomplicate it, you try to do too many things at once, that's just another way of procrastinating. That's just another way of creating overwhelm and saying, oh, I tried everything, I can't do it. Oh, it didn't work. That's a bad strategy. That's another emotional response that is not healthy. Find something small, build on it, fucking nail it, do it for at least 21 days, because that's the minimum time it takes to build a habit. And then stack on it little by little. And any one of the things we talked about, if you did one of the things we talked about today, I think you'd be very delighted over maybe not a day, but for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year of doing any of these things consistently. I think you'll be delighted with the results.
For sure. You mentioned syntax, right? Because it's not just what you do, but it's also the order. Like, because these things they influence each other, right? And if you do them in a certain way, in a certain order, it's going to have different effects. So it's like the science of building positive habits as well.
You're right, man. You're absolutely right. And one thing to really note too is, this type of health and wellness we're talking about, so much of it is a science, right? There's a technique, there's a formula. You do this, you do this. The body's biological, but you also have to have a life of meaning. And that's an art, that's different. There's not a science to how you build a life of meaning and a life of purpose. So you start with the science. Hopefully you put yourself in an elevated state, and then having some purpose or meaning of why you're doing these things. There's so much science, there's so much information around, someone that wants to get their health. I need to be healthier. That person might not do anything. But if they have a young child that says, mom, dad, I love you so much, and they say, no, I'm getting healthy for my child. I'm just using an example. That purpose, that meaning is way more powerful than just, I need to be healthy, I should quit smoking, I should all over yourself. No, make it a need, a must, and have some underlying purpose of how it's going to contribute, how you're going to help something, how a purpose. And if you create a great meaning behind the behavior, the chances of it working are exponentially greater.
Yeah, purpose is key, and reasons and reap results, man. So
Meaning, give it a good meaning. Have a good meaning. You can change the meaning on things. Meaning can change. Like if there's times in my life where it's like, this sucks, this means I'm an idiot. And then later on, you can look at the same set of facts that says, this means I was blessed and I've learned and I've grown. Um, and I think it's very powerful to audit those things of what we think things mean.
right, power of belief, man. Because you also talked about it's like all these great things are great, but you have to believe as well. It's
You
like you're
do.
thinking about it, like all these things are going to actually impact me in a positive way, right? And you kind of feel it more. You're kind of like in the moment. It's supposed to like, oh, this may work, or I don't think this is going to work. It's like a different experience.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And belief has to be trained too. Belief can be trained. Read, Think, and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Repeat to yourself those affirmations, those auto suggestions over and over. You train belief. That's why, you go to church or mosque or temple every week. You train it. You train those beliefs when it comes to the religions have practices and rituals. And there's a reason why they've lasted thousands of years, because they're fully ingrained and they're revisited, and you redo them again, and you do them yearly and weekly. And same thing with good behaviors and bad behaviors. The more you do them, the more you ritualize them, the more you believe in them and you create community around them, the more likelihood they're going to stick. That's a system. That's a system, and
100%.
that's a process.
Yeah, repetition is key.
Repetition is the mother of all learning.
100%. All right. Ari, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you, man, for coming on the show today, sharing your story with us, all your insights about habit routine and how we can actually optimize our overall wellness, right? Because again, there's so much information out there, but we actually learn how to do it in a cohesive manner and learn the processes. That's really going to create long-term sustained wellness and happiness overall, right? In all areas of life, you can apply these principles, the basic principles, and apply them to anything, really. And again, it's been an honor, man. And again, just like as you mentioned, take some of these things, those small wins, and how can we amplify our lives, man? That's what it's all about. So thank you so much.
You're the man, bro. Thank you so much for having me.
For sure. So how can we get connected with you and all your amazing work?
Sure. You can look me up pretty easy if you Google my name. We're on all the social stuff. You can go to rastegarcapital.com to learn about our investments. You can find us on LinkedIn at Rastegar on Instagram. A simple Google search will probably tell you more than you ever wanted to know. If you wanted to buy the book, which is called The Gift of Failure, you can buy it on Amazon, or more about health and wellness. Particular, I talk a lot about it in my book. You can buy Defy Aging by Dr. Jacob Rosenstein as well. If you want to learn very specific around health and wellness, he's my doctor. He's brilliant, one of my best friends. But between that stuff and some of the books and topics we covered, hopefully you have some value there to go on your journey and continue to grow and build yourself up so you can give even more.
100%. All right. Thank you.